So it's telling me that it's live. I do not see it being live right now. If you guys can hear me, then tell me otherwise. Oh wait, is it live now? Ignore the stream title. I used the last previous one that was showing up. I think it literally just killed the previous one. Okay, can I change this? I don't know what it's doing because it was perfectly fine. I changed absolutely nothing, and then today I try it and it doesn't work. I don't think I can change the thumbnail from here. Okay, sorry. You guys can start with the usual questions and such. I'm going to try to patch stuff together in the meantime. Yeah, for now, I think the thumbnail is just going to say UFC 320, so that is what it is, I guess. Even YouTube thought this fight night was too bad to allow a stream to air on it, apparently. Did Uncle Ive give up? Kind of. I think that once he was rocked, he was like, okay, I don't want to work my way out of it. I don't think he was not hurt at all. He was definitely hurt. But I do think he made the conscious decision to not try to work his way out. Did Piper get you? Not yet. Thoughts on Merab's performance and who wins between Song and Merab? Merab would definitely beat Song, in my opinion. I was not as impressed with Merab's performance as most people seem to be. His increase in power was definitely cool to see, but I thought the fight was a lot closer than people seem to agree with. You see how he came in injured? I mean, fighters always come in injured. I don't know why they bother wrenching it afterwards. Like, if you're too injured to fight, pull out. Otherwise, just don't even talk about it, in my opinion. How far do you see Chonko going? Not very far. His defense is kind of atrocious. I did 48, 46 Merab. Yeah, that's a reasonable scorecard. That or a draw are both very reasonable. But the thing is that round 4 and 5 were both razor-thin rounds. That is also partially because Merab just started brawling at the end of round 5, but it still did come out to that outcome where both were somewhat coin flip. So, Corey also, like, it's a weird thing to watch because I did expect that to happen. If you guys remember what I was saying, I did expect Merab to win, but I did expect it to be a fairly close fight. If Corey had punching power, that fight goes very differently. But I don't think there's anyone else in the weight class who has Corey's skills while having more punching power. So Merab may just not have an issue with anyone else, honestly speaking. I thought 1, 3, and 4 was pretty close too, but Merab had the 10-8 round 2. I think you probably mean 4 and 5 were pretty close because 3 wasn't that close, but yeah, it was generally close. I said round 5 could have been Corey's and got grilled for it. You're not wrong, because Corey did rock him at the end, and he had 2 other big moments in the round. So scoring round 5 to Corey is by no means an absurd scorecard. Taporia versus Velmaker, who you got? I'd probably say Taporia in that, but Wellmaker's scheduled with Surrey City now anyway, so I felt like it was a very clear win from Rob. I think the pressure and the takedown volume made it seem more clear than maybe it was if you look at like the damage dealt and such. The fight was so winnable for Corey at times. Maybe. I do think that he's at a massive disadvantage stylistically there because of his lack of power, but he did fairly well, yeah. We need Josh Emmett to go down and wait and see what happens. That'd be funny. Who wins Topuria versus Merab, who has been on EPA for 1 year and a 75-inch reach at 145? I'm confused. What's the 75-inch reach? Oh, you're saying if Merab was on EPO and at a 75-inch reach? I'd still probably say Topuria because I think Merab is a little too hittable, but it would be an interesting fight. Merab versus top 5 featherweights. I mean, he beats most of them. I do think that potentially, I mean, I do think he would struggle a lot with Volk, just because Volk's anti-wrestling is very strong. But even with Volk, he may be able to overwhelm him with volume. I'm not that confident. What do you think was Corey's game? I felt like he should have gone more for the body and showed the knee. He definitely should have shown the knees more, in my opinion. Going to the body is a little too risky, in my opinion, because O'Malley was going to the body a lot, and what Merab would do is wait for O'Malley to go to the body and then jump in right after. It got very easy to time. Granted, O'Malley wasn't hiding it well, but I do think going to the body on Merab is still a little bit too much of a risk to be worth the reward, unless it's like the spinning back kicks, and Corey did land a good one in round 5, I believe. What do you think about Tall Volk Shikadze calling out Evil Volk John Silva? I mean, I'd say give Giga a winnable retirement fight. I don't think he wants John's. Well, maybe he does want. I don't think it's good for him to get John Silva, but I mean, if he calls for it and gets it, it is what it is, I guess. Is the guy Wellmaker's going to fight any good? He's alright. Not spectacular, though. Thoughts on Tom versus Alex? I do actually think Alex would take it, because Tom is just so hittable. And even if he's just going to run across and try to rugby tackle him, as he was saying, well, you could just run into a flying knee or uppercut. Talbot could beat Merab, he would KO him. Talbot's just not good enough on the back foot. When he starts moving backwards, his footwork gets very weird. Alright, so I'm going to get into the breakdown now. We're going to blow through it quickly since this event kind of sucks anyway. So I was messing with the delay to try to get this to work. So I may have a much bigger delay than usual, which it looks like in what I'm testing here. I may actually have to try to fix this, otherwise the delay is going to be absurd. Please let me... It's not going to let me change the delay. Okay, that's lovely. Okay, so I'm behind, or you guys are behind me rather, by around like 20 to 25 seconds. I don't know if something's up with YouTube today or what happens and what is happening, but yeah, that's how it is, I guess. Alright. So, Walter Walker versus Muhammad Usman got cancelled for anyone who doesn't know, which is unfortunate because that was only one of the more interesting fights on the card, because Walker probably could have pulled off another heel hook, which would have been fun. So, starting with Rocha versus Nicole. So, Rocha is a power puncher. He's going to move forward and kind of sling things on the front foot, so kind of like the way Ruzaboyev does, which I always talk about. His defense kind of just consists of fading backwards. He doesn't really have any head movement or like a great guard or anything. So if you combo, you can definitely hit him. His biggest weakness is his ground game and the fact that when he does sling strikes, you can take him down fairly easily, which is why Clayton Carpenter was able to just take him down pretty much at will and finish him in round 2. Nicole is a very aggressive grappler. He's going to look to ground and pound to open up the submission. Sometimes he just keeps going with the ground and pound, doesn't even go for the submission. But on the feet, he's nothing special. He's just going to pressure you as much as possible. Relatively heavy on the jab, but everything he does all in the feet is to get you to the ground. His loss against Aguilar isn't as bad as many people make it out to seem, in my opinion, because Nicole was doing extremely good in the grappling. He had Aguilar in an incredibly bad position for how good a grappler Aguilar is, and then just made a mistake and ended up getting guillotined, which happens against Aguilar because he's so good at that. In this fight, because Rocha just doesn't have a ground game, it feels like, and has problems and you put him on the back foot, I do think Nicole probably takes this. I am actually surprised that he's a mild underdog right now. Rocha's record looks more impressive, but from what we've seen of him in the UFC, I don't especially like it by any means. Bia Mesquita, or Mesquita, however you say it, versus Irina Alesquiva. So Mesquita is a pure BJJ fighter. She did a bunch of BJJ comp, transferred to MMA, has, I believe, they don't have a record here. I think she has 4 subs and 1 TKO. Her stand-up is not non-existent, so she's not completely lost if it's on the feet, but she's definitely going to try to get you down as soon as possible. She will wait for you to make a mistake in order to get you down. So, like, she'll throw out some jabs, move forwards, kind of wait for you to commit to a shot, and then try to shoot under and get it. She does have a variety of takedowns, unlike a lot of the BJJ people, so she may go with the single leg, double leg. She has trips, throws, etc. Irina Alesquiva is a Sambo fighter, but I don't ever understand what she's doing. Like, she just does stuff. It's like whatever comes to the top of her mind, she just does. That worked against Stephanie Edgar when she hit the, I forget if it was a heel hook or a knee bar, but she got an interesting submission there. On the feet, she's just like, will randomly jump in with a hook, back up 10 feet for no reason, throw a combo from 5 feet away, randomly decide to start brawling in the pocket with hooks, then maybe shoot a takedown. It's hard to analyze because there's no patterns. It just doesn't really make sense. That being said, there is a way that Mesquita loses this fight, even though she's a massive favorite, because her takedowns have never really been tested against decent caliber competition. If she can't get Alesquiva down, even though I don't rate Alesquiva stand up that much, it is still probably better than Mesquita's. So I'm going to pick Mesquita by first round submission, probably a rear naked choke, but we could see another like WMMA fraud check where someone just doesn't have enough experience for it to mean anything. What are these records? 0-0 versus 5-3. Okay, the 0-0 isn't correct. She's 5-0. UFC sometimes does this where when someone is debuting, they have them listed as 0-0 for some reason. But basically, it's just her stats have not been inputted or updated yet or whatever it is. Petrino versus Petersen. So Petrino is relatively well-rounded. On the feet, he's kind of going to try to get into the pocket and throw hooks, but he is somewhat technical with it. So there's no, like, terrible lapses in his defense. He is a little bit low fight IQ, like diving into Anthony Smith's guillotine, for example. But he is relatively powerful. He has light heavyweight skill, so even though he is heavyweight size, he does actually have a skill set because he did come up in light heavyweight. And generally speaking, I mean, he's going to be solid anywhere the fight goes. Petersen is pretty much a pure wrestler. I don't even want to say grappler because he doesn't really have like submission ability, but he has reasonable takedowns, a lot of like single legs from distance. He'll transfer to a double leg and such. It's for heavyweight, it's fairly technical. On the feet, all he really has is a jab. He'll also keep his hands low and kind of like jab in a weird way, like he's trying to emulate a boxing style as a wrestler, but doesn't really have the head movement for it. Petrino should knock Petersen out. Petrino is a legitimate fighter. Petersen is a heavyweight, and we all know how that goes. Petrino is, of course, very unreliable, but this should be a fairly easy matchup for him. So I'm going to say Petrino first round knockout via a hook. Petrino will find a way to lose, don't worry. Yeah, somehow I wouldn't even be shocked if he did. Filho versus Clayton Carpenter. So this is actually a really interesting matchup because whoever wins this, in my opinion, will probably be top 5 at some points and may even fight for a title at some point. So Filho is on the feet extremely aggressive with hooks. He pretty much will only throw hooks and calf kicks. Sometimes he'll enter with a 1-2, but it's mainly just to set up his hooks. He throws very aggressively. He does not care about getting hit, and he's just going to pressure forwards at pretty much all costs. On the ground, he is going to try to work to your back and find the rear naked choke. That is his main goal. He will jump and try to throw his hooks in, even when he should not. And sometimes he loses position because of that. Off his back, he does sometimes have heel hooks and other things. But we did see in his last fight that if you can kind of just settle him on his back, he will kind of just not do anything for a bit because he'll be too desperate to try to set up submissions and not really work his way back to his feet properly. Clayton Carpenter is interesting because I saw tape of him actually a while ago now, before I was even looking at him for UFC fights, because he was the opponent of someone I was helping for a regional scene fight. So Carpenter actually won that fight by head kick rather. But yeah, so Clayton Carpenter is a BJJ, both gi and no gi champion, has a ridiculous resume in that sense. You can see it when the fight goes to the ground. He's pretty technical with how he does things. Off his back, I did not love what we saw against Aguirre. I would have rathered he was trying to work his way back to his feet because, especially against flyweights, like landing a submission off your back is very, very unlikely. But on the feet, he is going to be a bit more technical with like 1-2s and such. He will use a lot of like lead elbows and such as well. So I do think in the stand-up here, if Filho is running forwards with the hooks and Carpenter is trying to use the lead elbows, Carpenter may be able to rock or slice up Filho because of that. So in a fight where a lot of it is probably going to cancel out, like they probably have pretty similar wrestling. Carpenter does have better grappling, but I don't know if it's enough better that he's going to be able to submit Filho. It may come down to their striking styles. So I'm going to lean towards Carpenter winning a decision here, basically by being able to do more damage on the feet just with the straighter shots and the lead elbows and stuff like that. Didn't Clayton gas out against Aguirre? I'm forgetting if he gassed in round 3 or not. He did better than he was supposed to. Like, the rounds were relatively close in general, and Aguirre also was cheating as usual to win that fight. So there is a possibility if Aguirre doesn't get away with like repetitively grabbing the shorts and stuff like that, then Clayton would have had a chance to win. I still think he would have lost, but you never know. It wasn't a bad showing, though, for someone who was so green to the UFC and just got the step up very quickly. Okay, Lucas Almeida versus Michael Aswell. So Lucas Almeida is a very, how do I put it, a very static striker, in that he's basically never going to move his head. He doesn't really have any dynamic footwork. He's just going to move like in a straight line and throw his stuff. On the front foot, he's mainly going to throw 1-2s. On the back foot, he mainly throws 3-2s. He'll spam a lot of calf kicks as well, but he's extremely predictable with what he's going to do, and he always stays on the front line. That's why Philly was able to counter him so easily. It's like, okay, once you start timing his stuff, you kind of know what to do next, in all honesty. Aswell is... Okay, so from what we've seen, which is different than his actual skill set, let's say, he is just a pressure striker who's going to push forwards, use a lot of 1-2s, and try to overwhelm his opponent. If we look at his actual full skill set, he does have solid wrestling, and he can throw more complex combos than the 1-2s and such. From what we've seen from him so far, though, at a high level, he hasn't necessarily shown it yet. Aswell definitely should win this fight, in my opinion, because especially if he utilizes his full skill set, it's going to overwhelm Almeida. If he fights the same way he has fought in his previous fights, I still think he's going to win, but it's going to be much closer. I am going to say that Aswell is able to overwhelm the very predictable striking of Almeida and get a second round TKO, but that's a tentative prediction because if he doesn't really use the full skill set again, it's probably a decision here, and it could be much closer than it needs to be. Okay. Ramos versus Ofli. So Ramos is one of the least reliable fighters in the UFC, in my opinion, in that he is extraordinarily talented, but just makes a lot of dumb mistakes repetitively. Like, he's one of the few fighters, maybe the only fighter I know of, who lost 2 fights in a row by guillotine in the exact same manner. He has a very explosive shot from the outside, but he basically abused that and just stopped setting it up in any capacity and then dove into guillotines. On the feet, he's very explosive and he's very dynamic. He'll throw spinning back fists, spinning kicks in general. His fundamentals on the feet aren't incredibly solid, but it does help him set up his ground game. And on the ground, he's very quick to take the back and try to look for the rear naked choke. He basically had the rear naked choke like 95% locked in against Culibao. That was the deepest rear naked choke I think I've ever seen someone survive. So props to Culibao for managing to get that out. Ofli is a control grappler, basically. He's looking to grind you against the fence, pull you down, and kind of like ride out the round with a bit of ground and pound, and maybe like threaten a few submission attempts and such. He's not the most dangerous anywhere, and in all honesty, he probably shouldn't be in the UFC. Like, his showing against Myron Santos was just really bad, and then even though he did a little better in his next fight, it just wasn't anything to make me think he can compete with actual UFC fighters. So even though Ramos is unreliable, I'm going to say Ramos wins by... I forget what my actual prediction was for this. I'm going to say decision for now, but I could easily see it being a finish as well. It's a good bounce back fight for Ramos, so if he's going to put things together and start actually trying to make a run, this is the time to do it, because he is the perfect opponent who's really not a threat anywhere. Answer a few questions before we start. Go back to tearing through the main card here. My boy put 1,500 on Figgy money line. I'm confident he wins, but I wouldn't bet on it. Putting anything on Figgy at this age is a decision, in my opinion. Thoughts on John Pork's future in the UFC? I don't think he'll do as well as people think he will. I didn't like his defense at all. He also has no real urgency on the feet. He'll throw a lot of strikes, but not really work towards a finish properly. Early prediction for RDR versus Allen. I am leaning towards Allen, and I hate picking Allen because he'll do the stupidest things to lose fights, but he has the skill set to win this, so I feel like I have to pick him. Damn, that's a decent delay. Yeah, it's definitely a delay. This is not the most fun. Stream is something today. I'll try to figure out what the issue is between streams, because obviously I don't want this to happen again. Is Wellmaker gonna cough in another bantamweight? Yeah, he probably knocks out Surrey City. I don't see Surrey City having much of a chance there. Did you see the Dana White Contender Series war? Both guys got signed, but is that much early damage worth it? I mean, hopefully they both take the proper time to recover. I would say they should probably both take a minimum of 8 months off before they take another fight, and probably 2 to 3 months without even sparring. Fighters, unfortunately, jump back into the gym very quickly. It's not good because your brain does need time to recover. So hopefully it doesn't affect them, but we never know, unfortunately, how they're gonna treat it. Allen's fight versus Imavov was frustrating. He could have won. Yeah, if he just kept striking in round 3, he actually had a chance to win that. Brendan Allen is so talented. I've never seen such talent ruined by poor fight IQ. Yeah, agreed. That fight was a banger, almost a strike a second. Yeah, it was crazy. Alright, let's tear through the main card. So Diniz versus Pinto. Diniz was a kickboxer pre-MMA, and he has the instincts of a kickboxer. He's very forward pressure heavy, and unlike, say, Atafo, who were kickboxers but are very reliant on finding like one big shot, Diniz is definitely going to set things up, be patient, and so on. It's a much more technical approach, in my opinion. Diniz doesn't hit as hard as I think people initially expected him to, which is why his last fight and the Carl Williams fight ended up going to decision. But he's going to give methodical pressure, which is hard for people to deal with, especially heavyweights, because of the fact that he is relatively defensively sound and is not going to most likely eat a big shot and just go out because of that. He will keep a technical guard, and yeah, I mean, he's just basically a pressure boxer, you could say, who will throw kicks occasionally. Pinto, on the other hand, is the guy who will sleep someone with one shot. He's going to take his time, really try to find those one shots, and then throw like 1 to 2 things in combination. Nothing long from him ever. He will be willing to brawl in the pocket if like you draw him into that, but it's not his preference, to say the least. His defense is a little bit questionable because when you throw stuff at him, he kind of just shells up and moves backwards. He doesn't like to have strikes coming his way, it seems, and he won't like take any proactive measure to stop it. Because of that defensive issue, I do have to lean Diniz here. Diniz is essentially... Oh, sorry. Pinto's tendency to back up and just let someone throw is terrible against a pressure boxer like Diniz. So I don't know why Pinto opened as a favorite, but I think this card is just so weird that no one had any idea how to price this stuff. So I'm going to say Diniz gets a first round TKO, but it's heavyweight. We'll see what happens. What should be the game plan if you want to beat Ilya? You have to counter his right hands or preemptively counter his right hands. What I mean by that is when he starts loading it, you can hit him, or after he throws it, you can hit him. Diniz doesn't even get KOs. Yeah, his last 2, I think, he did not. But I still think he has okay power. His last opponent just had a ridiculous chin, and in the Carl Williams fight, he was very afraid of the takedown. Hello, everyone. Hello, Bennett. Luque hitting a Darce on Joel and making a title run to the title, believe it. We'll see. Listening to Anthony Smith on Dana White's Contender Series is so infuriating. He thinks he's some genius when he's more like official Fight Labs. Yeah, I agree with you there for sure. Vlogdin wants to fight Bircher? Who's that? Sorry, I'm forgetting. In December. Yeah, that's a really bad idea to come back in December, but I'm not surprised. Hines was also juicing. Yeah, there is that also. I do think that Diniz slowing down in that fight was not my favorite look, but I think Hines was a little bit better than we gave him credit for pre-fight. Archer Souza. Oh, is that the guy who beat Rufy like in the early days? Breakdown on Fight Lab's recent analysis on Corey Marab. I have not seen it, but maybe when we finish through the main card, I will watch it and then comment on it. Have you seen the comments DC and Chael are making about Pereira next fight? They aren't mentioning the fact that Alex could get a 3rd belt and rather talk about Jones. Listening to DC and Chael talk gives me brain damage. Pinto doesn't look like he has a solid chin. Yeah, getting dropped by Austin Lane is not the best look. How did you have Usman versus Hughes scored? I had it for Hughes, and I thought it was pretty clear in all honesty. No, the guy whose dad died before his Contender Series fight. Oh, okay. That's... I mean, it would be a fun fight, don't get me wrong. Just coming back this quickly would be really dumb. Is Pinto good? Not really, in my opinion. Alright, going on to Luque versus Joel Álvarez. So, Luque, dangerous striker, heavy offense, very reliant on his lead hook. He'll find it as a counter, he'll find it offensively, and so on. He is basically just going to march forwards and throw stuff repetitively until the fight ends, or until he either knocks you out or the fight ends, I should say. If he drops you, he's very willing to look for the Darce. He doesn't usually like wrestle and then find the Darce. It's really like if you wrestle or he hurts you, he'll look for submissions. His biggest problem has been that his defense is kind of non-existent, and he was relying on his chin for a long time. It finally did run out against Jeff Neal, and then he had the very bad brain bleed, and every time I see Luque fight now, I'm genuinely worried he's going to die in the octagon, so his fights stress me out, to say the least. Joel Álvarez is another, like, full offense striker. For a long time, he had 0% takedown defense. That only changed in his fight against, what's his name? He has one fight where he stuffed takedowns. The Brenner fight. Yeah, he stuffed every takedown in the Brenner fight. He has not stuffed the takedown from any other opponent, which is why you see like all of them have takedowns against him, except like is Demir and Moises didn't shoot on him for some reason. But anyway, so yeah, his takedown defense is definitely a problem. On his back, though, he is very aggressive with submissions. He will pull the armbar, he will work his way up and then try to darce you. He's just going to try to hurt you from pretty much anywhere. In a way, he's kind of like Tony Ferguson that way, where he's very comfortable wherever the fight goes, even if he may not stop the fight from going in certain directions. On the feet, he's going to look to use his range to punish you with like knees, elbows, and long distance techniques in general. Even if you get in the pocket, he will start winging there, and he is so fast and powerful that it makes it work. The biggest problem with Joel Alvarez, in my opinion, is that he does definitely neglect defense. So there's a bit of the tall man defense where he kind of just tries to fade out of range, and then he also kind of just abuses his chin sometimes and takes shots. So while Joel Alvarez definitely should win this fight, there is a chance that Luque does catch his chin with a left hook here. It would not absolutely shock me, especially because Luque is going to be a little bit longer, a little bit taller than the fighters that Alvarez is used to fighting. So it will be interesting to see how Alvarez adjusts the weight class. Maybe because he has more fluids in his body now, he's going to have better reaction time and be able to defend better. We'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting to watch, because if Alvarez just absolutely eviscerates Luque, he may very quickly be a contender at 170. Like even at 155, he had the potential to easily be top 10 in my opinion. At 170, which is probably a little bit of a weaker weight class right now, he could easily do the same. I like DC, but his analysis and commentary is usually terrible. Yeah, he just says stuff. Joel moved up. I thought he was meant to fight BSD. He pulled out of the BSD fight and then moved up after that. The only question in this fight is whether Alvarez wins in round 1 or 2. Fair. I feel like UFC cards are just too top heavy. These days, yeah, they have been, unfortunately. Luque fight against Neal and Buckley was fair. Yeah, I didn't even mention the Buckley fight. That was a very strange look, because he got a few times and then kind of just pulled to guard and didn't do anything. I don't know if that was a result of the Neal fight in a way where he doesn't take damage the same way. But I would expect if he starts getting hit by Alvarez, things are not going to go well very quickly here. All right. Figueiredo versus Montel Jackson. So everyone knows who Figueiredo is, so I won't go into his style too much. But in recent years, he has gotten more aggressive as a grappler. He always did wrestle a lot, but now he looks for the submission over the knockout, where he used to kind of use takedowns to set up his hands more so. So against Sandhagen, we saw the fact that he was very desperate for the takedown, ended up going to the heel hook when he wasn't able to really control Sandhagen on the ground. And that, of course, backfired relatively quickly for him because Sandhagen knows how to play the leg lock game. It was a bad look. I don't know what Figgy was doing that fight. He seemed like he should have retired potentially that night. He said he was injured afterwards. Maybe that had a role in it, but he didn't look like the same fighter he used to be. Even in the Piotr Jan fight, I felt like he didn't look like the same fighter, but the Sandhagen fight was like, okay, yeah, you are old now, unfortunately. Montel Jackson was close to getting into Olympics. He went to Olympics trials, did decent, I believe, but didn't quite make it. You wouldn't know that in terms of his defensive wrestling, because it is very easy to take him down for some reason. The 2 fights he lost are because he was spam wrestled, and his fight with Marcos, which ended up being kind of close, was because he got taken down. When he does shoot offensively, he does have a very high percentage there, but the defense definitely can cost him. On the feet, he is very heavy-handed. He's going to be patient. He doesn't ever rush anything. He's just going to look mainly for 1-2s. In the Marcos fight, he was uncharacteristically looking for overhands. I don't know what prompted the change in style there, but usually he's going to be a lot more technical than that. In this fight, especially based on what we saw last time, Jackson may knock Figgy out very quickly, because if Figgy does the same thing where he's trying to absorb strikes while going for takedowns, going for leg locks, and so on, Jackson hits a lot harder than Sandhagen. On the flip side, if Jackson's takedown defense is still a massive problem, maybe Figgy can out-wrestle him for 3 rounds. Maybe Figgy can even find a submission. But I definitely do have to lean towards the younger fighter here and say Montel Jackson will win. I'm going to say by decision because he hasn't been getting that many finishes in recent times, even though he is dropping people. But he could easily knock out Figgy in round 1. Then we're like, okay, why did this fight ever happen? Figgy needs to retire. What's Figgy's path to victory? Montel just has so many more ways to win. Yeah, Figgy probably has to grapple or be very aggressive with the striking. It's just, he has to not be forcing things. Like, relax and let it come to him, because Montel Jackson will make mistakes, especially in terms of the grappling defensively. Figgy's coach said that Figgy tore his knee after that fight too. Do you believe it's been enough time to heal? Probably not. I do think that Figgy is probably coming for like one last paycheck and will retire in Brazil, in all honesty. Figgy via lighter men's skill. It'd be interesting. I don't know, men Grand Pub War might shock people Saturday. Montel does him into valid. Yeah, it's especially because it's a Brazil card, so it makes it convenient for him. With the opponent not being another legend and not having taken the time to recover, it's not the best look, in my opinion. That is not what I meant to do. There we go. The UFC web... Okay. UFC website likes doing weird things. Alright. Charles Oliveira versus Mateusz Gamrot. So, everyone knows how both of these fighters fight, so I'm just going to go more so into specifics quickly. Gamrot is very good at shooting the low singles early. And he'll do weird things where, like, he'll step behind your leg as he shoots the low single. So he's kind of both using a single leg and a trip simultaneously, whereas most people, while they will trip you with the single leg, they'll start at the single leg and then try to trip you out. So it's a very interesting style of wrestling, which results in him getting people down a lot more often than pretty much anyone else does. He's probably the best pure wrestler technique-wise in the division, especially because it's so unorthodox. The problem and Gamrot also is an underrated boxer. His kicks, in my opinion, he should just pretty much abandon, because if you guys saw my reel on him, he loves finding ways to get his kicks countered. He kicks at the stupidest times. He'll feint a kick and get countered. He'll throw a kick and get countered. And he also mainly kicks to, like, right below the armpit. And yeah, you can do damage, but it's not like you're threatening to end the fight or doing such meaningful damage that it's worth getting countered, in my opinion. But with the boxing, his 1-2 is pretty crisp. He has reasonable head movement to get out of the pocket as well, but he does get caught, and he is a little bit chinny. His recovery is good. He'll shoot to recover right after getting dropped, and like 5 seconds later, it'll be like nothing ever happened. But if he does get touched, especially by someone with Oliveira's power, he will go down. A lot of the questions around this fight are because Oliveira is coming back so quickly from the knockout. I don't fully know what to say about it, because on one hand, I don't expect Oliveira to get chinned by Gamrot. Even though Gamrot's boxing is underrated, it's still not the level of striker that I believe Oliveira has had to deal with and had success against. But we don't know if it's going to do something weird, because when fighters come back too quickly after taking damage, sometimes we see them make very strange decisions, because it's either still psychologically with them, or like they are too nervous about taking the damage, and weird things happen. I am going to pick Oliveira. And the reason for that is because Gamrot does tend to break a little bit under pressure. When you force him back repetitively, he does start slowing down. He does start doing a bit weird things. He'll take shots he wouldn't otherwise. He'll run into knees, stuff like that. I think that Oliveira, with his style of constant pressure, is definitely someone who's kind of tailor-made to break Gamrot. So had the Topuria knockout not happened, I'd be very confidently saying that Oliveira is going to finish Gamrot easily. So I am going to say that Oliveira comes in, uses a lot of knees, keeps, pushes Gamrot back, eventually tags him on the feet, and then finishes the fight with a darce when Gamrot like shoots for a low single after getting rocked. Who does Pereira have a better chance of beating, Aspinall or Jones? I actually like the Aspinall fight a little bit more for him, just because Aspinall is so hittable. Like, Jones doesn't pose the same dangers as Aspinall does, but Jones is a lot more defensively responsible. I don't know why I see Gamrot getting dropped and shooting a sloppy takedown and getting guillotined. That's very plausible. I don't think he's going to get guillotined because of the fact that he shoots so low. I think what's going to happen is he's going to shoot towards a single and Oliveira is going to lock up the Darce or an Anaconda. I could see it being an Anaconda thinking about it a little bit more, but one of those two in my opinion. Yeah, I'm picking Oliveira, so he might be screwed. But yeah, the betting odds really surprised me for this one. I expected Oliveira to be around minus 150 to minus 170. Gamrot being a mild favorite right now is strange to me. Because Gamrot, there's a chance he finishes the fight that like Oliveira can't take any damage and Gamrot chins him somehow. But realistically, I think he's more so going to have to wrestle to a decision here. And wrestling for 5 rounds against Oliveira is very dangerous, especially when you don't have the control that someone like Arman does. Even with Arman's control, which is a lot better than Gamrot's in my opinion, Arman was in danger of 3 separate submissions. So now we're saying worse control, worse finishing ability against pretty much the same Oliveira. It's not that removed time-wise. And somehow expecting the result to be like in the favor of Gamrot, which is weird to me. Hey, Oracle, what are your thoughts on Alex versus Ankalaev? I think that people are overrating Alex's game plan. He literally ran up to Ankalaev and only launched the right hand. Okay, so one thing I said going into that fight was that Alex needed to pressure a lot. He definitely got that memo and took that to heart. So I do think that was very important. I do think throwing the inside calf kick was also very important because his switch kick to the calf like does damage, but not quickly enough. So the inside kick, the way Jan did it, was the only way he was going to get damage off quickly enough to be able to affect Ankalaev. And it did force the switch stance out of Ankalaev, and he was able to catch him with the overhand. So it wasn't the most complex game plan of all time, but I'm not going to say it was overrated because I do think it was exactly what he needed to do. You have an early prediction for Islam versus JDM yet? I think JDM gets it done by TKO. Islam just gets caught too much. I am leaning towards JDM by TKO as well right now, but I'm not very confident. I don't know why so many people are on Gamrot's side. The only thing he has over Charles is wrestling, and that Charles might be injured. Charles any day valid. May JDM by TKO. We'll see. I'm going to take a dive if Charles loses valid. I think Pereira would sleep Jones. Jones is way too slow now, and Pereira can most likely defend this version of Jones's takedowns. That is definitely possible. The only problem, again, is that Jones is much more willing to just spam the oblique kicks and like spam the jab from distance and not really commit until he finds his moments. That being said, I'd still probably favor Pereira right now, but I do think that Kaan might be a much easier fight for him than people are expecting. Charles being the underdog is kind of expected now, to be honest. Maybe it's just against Gamrot? Like, to me, that is a little shocking, but I get what you mean. Do you think Charles will be more hesitant to move forwards in fear of getting knocked out again? In all fairness to Charles, it hasn't seemed to faze him before. Right after the Islam fight, he came out relatively strong against Dariush and found the knockout. So, I think he'll be okay, but you never know. What were your thoughts on Yuri versus Khalil? Khalil had an impressive performance to me. How do you rethink his matchups versus Ankalaev and Ulberg? I see Yuri doing exactly what Alex did to beat Ankalaev. You know what? Since this card was so kind of pathetic to get through, let's actually just do a quick review of the previous card, and I'll give my thoughts on those fights, because there was some interesting stuff there. Okay, so Hardy versus Walker. I feel like Hardy should have finished Walker. I don't know why she didn't push for it, but it is what it is. Brahimaj versus Vanderford. I'm glad I called that underdog there. Vanderford is super chinny, has super bad defense, and only can wrestle and has pretty much nothing else. So Brahimaj is dangerous from pretty much everywhere and will continuously look for the finish. So good performance from him. I do want to see him face a step up in competition because Vanderford is not UFC quality in my opinion. Basharat did okay against Gutierrez. His power was definitely better in the first 2 rounds, but getting pressured ridiculously by Gutierrez and being at risk of being finished in round 3 is not a great look in my opinion. Even though Gutierrez is solid competition, Basharat may not be ready to like go up the ranks and such. Santos versus Chassan, I mean, who cares? Santos had decent movement, gassed out in round 3 like she usually did and won a close decision. Soriano versus Varentenikov. So Soriano's wrestling at this weight class is definitely better. I don't know if he's just forced to do more cardio or the size really benefits him or what the deal is, but he's able to get these guys down very easily. Of course, it helps that Varentenikov just never improves his takedown defense whatsoever. I don't know why. It would have been nice to see Soriano get a finish so that we could really like give him some hype here, but Varentenikov is relatively durable, so this was as expected. I do want to see Soriano have some semblance of a step up, like Varentenikov is not testing if he's going to have a future at this weight class or not. Shabazian had a relatively good performance against Muniz, took his time, found the shot. I'm glad this didn't go to decision or anything, but Edmund was also already kind of breathing hard when he got the finish, so it is still concerning because his cardio just does not seem to improve. Patchy Mix is an embarrassment to MMA. I have been a massive Patchy Mix hater. This still should have been an easy fight for him, and I'm still shocked that he managed to lose it. Granted, I think he should have won the decision, but making it close against Jacob is not a good look. Mix had 0 head movement, 0 cardio, had no answer to just someone threatening a guillotine and using that to reverse position. Like, Bellator is just garbage. There's no other way of saying it. Yeah, but just cut Patchy Mix. He's not UFC quality. Santos versus Yu. Yu was looking very good in round 1, but the whole one shot at a time, as I was saying, is just not going to work at this level because someone at Santos's level is not going to get chinned by the single shot at a time. They're all too durable. They all are going to keep their guard up, be technically sound, and so on. So Santos throwing the combinations just, of course, was able to eventually catch Yu and showed why Yu, again, is maybe not ready for this level yet. Yu definitely has potential. He's very slick. Hopefully he goes back and improves things and like comes out with combinations and a bit better like sound defense and such. He could have a future in the division. I'm not saying that this loss is like a total fraud check where he's done. Santos, I want to see him get a step up. He's very fun at his weight class. I don't know what happened with the weight stuff. He needs to get that under control, but he's very technically sound. Gaudier versus Vines. I don't know why this happened or who sanctioned it, but yeah, I mean, that went about as we all expected. Pyfer versus Magomedov. Pyfer's early game plan, he said he was just going to make Magomedov work really hard, so I understand why he went to the grappling a lot. I would have liked to see Pyfer strike with Magomedov in round 1 just to see how it would have held up, but I do understand it was a logical decision to slow him down first and then chin him, and he wanted to make a point by submitting him, I guess, but basically go for the finish when Magomedov slows down, which is literally right, like 75% of the way through round 1. Solid performance from Pyfer, but Magomedov, again, is just someone who probably won't be in the UFC for much longer. So I would like to see Pyfer get a step up, maybe against like Robocop, something like that. Zalal versus Emmett. I'm glad I called this exactly. Emmett's style is just way too predictable. Zalal was just going to pull him in, get the takedown, then go for submission. We didn't really see much from Zalal other than he has good finishing instincts there. So good for him. He got his hype back because he got the quick finish. He definitely does need to step up in competition. He may actually be fighting for the title in a year or so, which is surprising given that he only got back to the UFC a year ago. So good for him. He's making a lot of quick progress there. Okay, so Yuri versus Roundtree. This is where it gets interesting. Gonna drink some water first. Gaudier round 1 knockout was minus 260, by the way. Oh, even better, by the way. So Gaudier under half round knockout was like plus 200 or something. And I had that. I have no idea why that was plus 200. Actually had staph and was antibiotics the week coming on the fight and had a horrendous weight cut. How many excuses is he going to give, though? Like, he looked atrocious against, what's his name as well, Bautista. Like, if it's that bad, pull out of the fight, in my opinion. Otherwise, just, there are no excuses. Santos didn't look sound with his haymakers. The haymakers are what he needed to use there. It wasn't about, like throwing haymakers isn't innately a bad thing. When you have a fighter who is relying on moving backwards with their chin up, using haymakers when you're coming in is very efficient. Yuri Ankalaev. I'll get to that in a second. Vittori is booked against Bruno Ferreira, yeah. Hey, Jimmy. I went back and checked the check hook. You said Tibera landed an Aswell. It didn't land clean at all. Barely grazed Tom by, and that's Tibera, someone who's Tom's not even expecting powerful offensive. Let me rewatch it quickly, because I do remember it landing, but it might have not landed that clean. That is definitely possible. Let's see. I don't remember when I put that rule out. I'm going to go back and try to find it. The worst one was definitely the Blades left hook, because that seemed like it rocked him. No, the right hook that Tybura landed on Aspinall definitely landed clean. I'm not sure if you're talking about a different one, but the one I'm talking about and I showed in the video with the Reyes stuff, you could see it landed clean right on the chin. I don't know if you're finding a different hook or something. Whether it landed or not, it's Marcin Tybura versus Alex Pereira. Yeah, very true as well. Would Islam beating JDM in dominant fashion change your mind on him versus Ilya? No, because Ilya is a very different style. Timestamp in fight. I tend to edit the timestamps out in the reels, so I don't have it, but I'll show you. After I get through this, I'll show you. Okay, so Prohaska versus Roundtree was a very interesting fight, and like I was talking about in my story, I don't know what Yuri was doing in rounds 1 and 2. His teep to the body was fine, but his movement and his punches made absolutely no sense. Someone was saying that his knee was blown out or something coming in, which I could definitely believe because it was just weird. What I am worried about a bit is that in trying to get more technically proficient, he's going too far in that direction, and it's kind of messing with his own instincts and his style, to the point that it's holding him back, which could be a problem if he fights Ulberg. Of course, round 3, when he started just going for it, absolutely spectacular. At a certain point, Yuri just turns it on, does not care about getting hit, and is just actually flowing with things. And when he hits that flow state, it's always amazing to watch him fight. But the Yuri that showed up in rounds 1 and 2, I would not want to see fight Ulberg, in all honesty. I don't think that would go well for Yuri. Granted, the Yuri who fought Hill in rounds 1 and 2, I'm much more fine with fighting Ulberg. So hopefully, if that fight is to happen, the Yuri from the previous fight shows up, because if it's the rounds 1 and 2 Yuri from this fight, it's not going to go well. Some people are saying, like, oh, Roundtree was just doing that well in rounds 1 and 2. I didn't feel like that. I didn't feel like Roundtree did anything special. Like, Roundtree did what he normally did, and Yuri was just very much overthinking things. He didn't try to push Roundtree back until round 3. He didn't use any takedowns, which is like, okay, I get that Yuri doesn't shoot takedowns that often, but especially if he was getting pressured and having issues in rounds 1 and 2. It would have been nice to see him go to that. And yeah, it just very strange fight, though I am happy, of course, that Yuri got the finish. Average Yuri fight, valid. Thoughts on Pereira versus Ulberg. I think Pereira would just jab him to death. I don't think Ulberg would really have a way of dealing with that, to be honest. If Yuri tries to be all technical, he might end up like Johnny Walker. Yeah, unfortunately, it's possible. How do you think Pereira came back? Just took time away and got his body back to the level it needs to be, I guess. It's a lull fight, Arnold Allen next. That would be a reasonable fight. Yeah, I could see that. I told you last stream, Yuri, Tylenol Max, and Break Khalil. My blood mashing king got it done. Valid. Do you think Islam Ilya is still happening? For me, I don't think beating JDM will do justice for Islam legacy. In all honesty, I think that if Islam loses to JDM, he may retire there. Because I don't see him I don't see him going back to 155. And I think he's not going to try to work his way back to a title shot at 170. But I think if he loses, he's probably done, and we don't get the Ilya fight, unfortunately. Yuri is one of those guys where you don't know what to expect when he fights. Yeah, exactly. It is kind of funny. The Khalil Roundtree fight was definitely the worst Yuri's looked in a while. Yeah, for sure. Do you think Yuri's plan was to tire Khalil? To an extent, for sure. It was very weird, though, because there are other ways to tire him. I don't think that it was his plan to drop 2 rounds and then come back, to say the least. I'm sure that he did want to wear on Khalil, though, yeah. I felt like Yuri slightly edged out round 2. I need to rewatch it, though. It seemed like his jab and teep were landing while Khalil was hitting air. I think he got hit by a big, maybe it was a left hook or something like that kind of gave Khalil the rounds, in my opinion. But it wasn't like Khalil was like that up in volume on him, so I do get what you mean. Who did you pick between Piotr and Figgy? I did not do predictions that week, actually, because I was busy. I forget exactly what was happening, but I remember explicitly I didn't end up looking at tape or doing predictions that week. Islam is unlikely going to 155 after all that way. Yeah, I agree. JDM would be Islam's best win since the first Volk fight, in my opinion. Yeah, I agree with that as well. How did Pereira beat a wrestler like Ankalaev? Well, if you pressure Ankalaev, he has issues. And he has shown issues, of course, with the inside calf kick when he fought Jan. So Pereira kind of just decided to go after him, and that's how you need to fight Ankalaev, in my opinion. So someone was asking before, how do I think Yuri versus Ankalaev would go? And yeah, I do think that Yuri can basically just do what Alex did this time and just pressure and finish Ankalaev. The only problem is he can't fight like he did against Roundtree in rounds 1 and 2 here. But again, if we get like old school Yuri who is going to try to push forwards and break Ankalaev, I do think it will work. Favorite pick of yours? What do you mean by that? Do you study logic? Logic in what capacity? If you pressure wrestlers in general, you can beat wrestlers like JDM. Yeah, you just have to make sure you don't run onto shots, but if you can time knees and such, then it's definitely doable. Islam most likely not going back to 155. He has to lose that muscle mass. Yeah, I agree with you. Yuri fries Ankalaev's circuits and confuses him to death. Very possible. But yeah, onto the Corey Merab fight. Corey made some very good reads in this fight, which I feel like no one is talking about. In round 1, he was using the left hook very efficiently, which has always been a weakness of Merab, which he has not fixed. O'Malley only went for like straight shots and wild overhands against Merab. The left hook is always what he struggled with the most. He got dropped with it against Moraes, he got caught with it against Cejudo, and Sandhagen caught him with it several times as well early. Round 2, of course, Merab adjusted by just extending the combo against Sandhagen, because Sandhagen would always try to like shoot 2 to 3 shots and then circle out to the left, his left usually. So Merab kind of just blitzed forwards and kept throwing, caught him, and almost finished him there. After that, round 3 was very wrestle heavy. Round 4, I thought Corey won. In my opinion, the swing round in this fight is round 5. If this wants to load. There we go. So round 4, yeah, technically speaking, Corey was down by 2 significant strikes, but I do believe that he was up in terms of, I hate to say damage because that's not the actual criteria, but you get what I mean when I say damage. And then round 5, Corey was definitely behind in volume, but he did rock Merab, which got it to be a very close round in my opinion. So this fight was a lot closer than I think the scorecards and people are making it out to be. Merab definitely made a good adjustment in round 2, and seeing him almost TKO Sandhagen was impressive. But Sandhagen definitely has the ability to adapt and maybe do better in the future. So I'm curious to see how Sandhagen does next fight. What's your favorite succeeded pick of all time? Any massive dogs or fights you thought stylistically obvious that no one noticed and you were proud of picking? So in terms of like really long odds, it would be Kaue Fernandez versus Grum Kutsaladze. In terms of just, the entire public is on one side and I'm on the other, it's BSD versus Rufi. Yuri said he was being overly patient, waiting to land a right-hand counter, and he definitely waited too long. But I think he needs to be patient with Ulberg. He can't be overly aggressive. Well, the problem with Ulberg is you don't want to be too patient either. Because if you're too patient against Ulberg, then you're just going to end up running into a counter at some points like Reyes did. You still do need to pressure Ulberg, in my opinion. Is there validity to rumors that Ilya and his wife broke up / divorced? Okay, so the MMA community is jumping on that very quickly. It's possible. I'm not going to say it's not. They could just be having some weird spat, though, because from what I've seen of what people are saying, the only quote-unquote evidence that they broke up is they deleted pictures of each other, which people do when they're annoyed. Like, sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean they're getting divorced. So we'll see what happens. I do think there's a bit of a jumping the gun of the reaction here, though. Picking Strickland over Izzy is my proudest dog pick. Valid, that's a good one. People are underrating the fact that Oliveira has so much less durability in the fight. Bro knocked out cold 2 months ago. The question is, doesn't matter, though, because do we think Gamrot's going to chin him? I mean, it's possible, but I'm not expecting it, which is why I'm still leading Oliveira, but I do get what you mean. They still follow each other? Yeah, exactly. So I think that everyone is just jumping to any plausible news rather than thinking about it. If Ilya did divorce his wife, I'm blaming MMA Shay. Why? What did he say? I think if you're a celebrity like Ilya, things like social media are very deliberate, though. Okay, but Ilya is also the type of person who might just orchestrate that to, like, get attention. He's pretty calculated with how he does things. So, yeah, as you're saying, it might be very deliberate, but it could be deliberate in a different direction. Because if they still follow each other, then, like, I don't know. What books do you read? What type of books? I mean, I've read a lot. I don't read that much anymore, but I used to read a lot of books. Who would you pick if Pereira and Ankalaev fought again? Definitely Pereira. Pereira validated everything I thought about that fight. I thought the first one would be very easy for Pereira. I was shocked it wasn't. The second one was exactly how I thought the first fight was going to go. JDM versus Morales, but the fight is in June. Who you got? JDM. Sorry, I missed it. Can you give a brief preview of what you said for the Carpenter fight? So basically, in terms of wrestling, they are relatively evenly matched, in my opinion. Maybe Filho has a slight advantage, but very little. On the ground, Carpenter has more credentials. It's hard to really know. They are both very good BJJ athletes. So I am saying that's going to cancel out-ish as well. On the feet, though, Filho is very hooks dependent. He is going to go very aggressive and try to push you back, but he is very dependent on winging the hooks. Carpenter's a little bit more measured and throws a lot of lead elbows also. The elbows could pose a problem with Filho's hook-heavy pressure, because Filho can basically just run into them and get cut or rocked. So I was leaning Carpenter decision, but I'm not confident in that one. Is Israel the most overrated striker at a high level? I don't think I've seen another fighter be more glazed for having a skill set that's not his. He literally specializes in jabs and low kicks. He might be... I don't think he's the most overrated striker. Like, he has some okay question mark kicks, but I do think that what people have not stated about Adesanya that's true is he has really bad setups. You kind of just throw stuff. Like, even when he throws the question mark kicks, it rarely works because of the fact that he doesn't throw teeps. If he threw teeps and then threw in a question mark kick, it would have a much higher success rate. Jay was doing a whole hunt during a live stream to find out if Ilya's wife was cheating with this dude named Weaselberg or something. Okay. That's something. I don't know if Instagram has some kind of archive private button, not that I know of. Fair. Instagram does have an archive button. Interesting. I hope JDM wins so I don't see a Temu version of Connor and Khabib with Islamity and Gary. Fair. Watching Gamrot interview Polish Power. What? I don't know. Okay. I don't know what that meant. Thanks, no problem. So happy for Gamrot as a Polish guy. Valid. He's a good fighter. Definitely underrated for a very long time. All right, let me see if I can I'll switch back to this and then see if I can find what we were talking about with Aspinall. Okay, I think I'm safe to use my own reels on stream because it's not that much copyrighted content, but we'll see. Let's find this. Okay, so you could see the blades lands clean. You could see the jaw spin here. Tybura one, I would also say that landed clean. Because again, it landed on the chin and his chin came back after it lands. So you could say maybe that Aspinall rolled with it a little bit, but I would say that landed pretty clean. And then, of course, this one lands really clean. So in the pocket again, Tom's defense is just not good in my opinion. Who gives JDM the hardest fights right now? And how does that fight go in your opinion? It might honestly be Protez because of his style. I still think JDM could win because he can force Protez onto the back foot though. John Pork didn't look too well-rounded in Dana White's Contender Series. Valid. Watch the official Fight Lab vid. Yes, actually, I will open that up. Will you be part of Bedtime Lucas Tracy MMA Guru collaboration? I will not. Is the Tom versus Alex fight interesting as of right now? I would like to see it, yeah. There's no jaw spin in the Blades match. I mean, we had a weird angle, but we see it land clean, right? Just because the Blades didn't put his weight into it properly doesn't mean it didn't land clean. So if we're comparing it to, again, someone like Alex who is going to put his weight into it properly, it's still going to be a problem, especially because we saw him get rocked after the Blades one. So if Blades didn't properly put his weight into it, that makes it even worse. Because again, if you watch the Blades one, after he takes that shot, he stumbles. So It's not a good look. Realistically, who is that much more dangerous than Pavlich in the pocket? Pereira, because we're talking about how an Alex match would go, which is why I think that Alex would sleep Tom pretty easily. Who's a nightmare matchup for Sean Brady? I mean, Bilal is basically his my nightmare matchup, realistically. I feel like Tom is a bit overrated, like he hasn't fought anyone great. Obviously isn't his fault, but everyone in the top 5 heavyweight, when DC was heavyweight champion, would beat Tom. I think Tom would have beaten most of them, to be honest, but he is still definitely overrated. Is Alex one of the most lethal champions in MMA history? Yeah, I mean, he probably has the highest finishing rate, like at that weight class at least, because Jones didn't finish many later in his career. Let me see if I can find the Fight Lab video. I am watching the official Fight Lab thing, by the way. I just don't want to show it in stream in case of copyright. Okay, so I will say by no means is judo my specialty. So I'm not going to see the issues in something like this that a judoka might. I didn't see anything terribly wrong with the video, but I don't know. It did seem like an overcomplication of something that was a bit more simple, to be honest, but I have no ridiculous complaints about that one. If Alex Pereira KOs Aspinall, he's got to be undisputed GOAT. No. I would say if he KOs Aspinall and defends once, it's very likely, yeah. I think JDM is going to reign for a long time. Thoughts? It's very possible, especially if he keeps improving. Aspinall would KO DC easily, in my opinion. I do think I probably agree there. I think that Stipe would beat Aspinall. Prime Stipe would. But I don't think that DC would. Usman versus Sean Brady, who wins? It's a good question. I don't know if I know, because Brady's boxing has gotten much better, and Usman doesn't keep a crazy pace like Bilal does. I think at this point, Alex destroys Jones if they fight. It'll be like, hope it will be Tom versus Alex. I mean, I'd like to see both, honestly. How do you think Tom versus Jones would go? See, I'm still in the camp that Jones probably wins that, because I think he can stay safe for 2 rounds. And if you stay safe for 2 rounds against a power puncher, they slow down, they lose their danger, and then you can either win a decision or finish them in the later rounds, usually. So I do have to pick Jones in that fight, even though I would like to see Aspinall win a fight like that. Jones looks so bad in that Stipe fight. Valid. I've rethought DDP versus Yuri. I don't see how DDP wins. He's clearly not powerful enough. His leg kicks aren't effective. His high guard is gonna give Yuri way too much opportunity, in my opinion. I get what you're saying. I do think that you are underestimating DDP's technique a bit, though. I'm not saying Yuri cannot win. I do think DDP has a solid chance of landing big. Because the way he's able to set things up in such an unorthodox but technical manner is weird. And especially with Yuri's defense not being always the best, against something as unorthodox as DDP, but still probably a bit more technical than Yuri in many regards, I think it will pose Yuri some issues. Imagine the scenes if Hooker KOs, if Hooker knees Armin into poverty, that would be hysterical, yeah. How would Prime Uberim do against Tom? That's an interesting one. I'd still probably favor Tom, because Overeem was always chinnable, but it would be fun. What attributes do you want to see in a fight to beat our long-reigning champs in JDM right now? In a fighter, rather, not fight. With Merab, you need knockout power, but you need to be more technical everywhere than O'Malley, which is a tough ask. A younger Cejudo may have been able to do it. I mean, even an older Cejudo didn't do terribly against Merab. Who else? Yeah, otherwise, I don't really know who there is right now. Pantoja, you need to be able to keep the pace with him. I think Van is actually a solid candidate to beat Pantoja, but he needs to be able to stuff the early takedowns, and I don't know if he can. That's going to be a tough call. I've missed this stream, Mr. Oracle. It's all good, I appreciate you being here. You can always go back if you're curious what happens when it ends. If Colby Covington can go to war with Usman in the boxing, then Brady can definitely win. Yeah, I do agree there. John took so many shots from old man Stipe. But yeah, Stipe is still a very good boxer, though. Who wins, Yuri or Ankalaev? It depends where Yuri shows up. If Yuri is super aggressive, I think he can win it. If he's trying to be too technical, he's not going to win it. How much do you think the injury affected Ankalaev? Feels like he did so good in the first fight and just crumpled in the rematch. I don't feel like he did very good in the first fight, in all honesty. I feel like Alex didn't do anything in the first fight. The second fight is how I expected the first fight to go. I don't think injuries or anything would change it. So if there is a third fight, which I don't expect there to be, I do think it will end just as quickly and in the same exact way. DDP or Alex? I'd lean DDP. How would Stipe beat Aspinall? Couldn't Aspinall take him down and submit him? Thought Stipe was pretty bad off his back. I mean, Prime Stipe had quite good takedown defense, and Aspinall also probably wouldn't shoot to start with. He would try to trade first and knock out Stipe. So if you're going to trade with Stipe, Stipe had very good counters. He was probably going to put out Aspinall. Like, Stipe's technical boxing is far above Aspinall's, in my opinion. Fedor versus Tom Aspinall thoughts. Tom Aspinall. Fedor super overrated. Volk versus Merab, who wins? I honestly think Volk would have won. I'd lean Volk, but I'm not confident because I don't know how he would deal with the volume. Volk's anti-wrestling has only been tested with like singular chain wrestling, not someone who's going to shoot 50 times. I want to see if Malcolm Wellmaker can KO Cheeto. I don't think he's technically good enough to do that, but it would be interesting to see. I know what you're saying about DDP, but at some point Yuri is going to push him back, and Israel had a lot of success backing DDP up, having a lot of opportunities to land. DDP can't afford to get hit. Well, the problem is that just because Adesanya pushed him back doesn't mean that Yuri will be able to, which I know sounds weird, but Adesanya pushed DDP back because DDP wanted him to. So they specifically talked about how their game plan for Adesanya was to make him push DDP back early and then pressure him late, basically to throw him off, open up takedowns, exhaust him faster, and so on. Against Yuri, I would expect that they are not planning on letting Yuri advance at all. Obviously, this is contingent on them having a reasonable game plan, but against strikers, they do seem to have solid game plans. No one's beating Pantoja. All hail Pantoja, valid. Thoughts on Jose Delano's potential in the UFC? I'll have to rewatch his last fight. I honestly don't remember it well enough. Alex was looking so big in that fight, valid. Hamzat or Alex? It's a tough call. I honestly view it as being a kind of 50-50. If Alex stuffs a single takedown, he wins. If he doesn't stuff a single takedown, he loses. So it depends on what you think happens in the first takedown attempt. Looks like no one has been able to really use grappling on Max. How would Max do against Prime Charles and current Charles? So Max has very good scrambling and takedown defense, and he has his own solid BJJ also, which is why it is very hard to grapple against him. I do think he is a bit of a bad matchup for Charles because of the fact that he is going to negate a lot of it, and his footwork is going to be able to make him avoid a lot of Charles's power. So I would probably lean towards Holloway, but it's not confident because I also am not confident that Max's chin would hold up if he did get hit by Charles, because I feel like people do forget how hard Charles hits. Like the way he dropped Gaethje, I can't think of anyone else ever doing that. I missed your Oliveira versus Gamrot breakdown. Could you give me the summary? Yeah, so I think that Oliveira's pressure is just going to be too much for Gamrot. When Gamrot's on the back foot, he tends to slow down. He tends to be defensively irresponsible. He might run into a knee, stuff like that. He also may start kicking from weird positions and get countered there. So I do think that Oliveira will rock him and then finish him with the submission front choke. John Jones versus Alex prediction. I'd lean Alex especially because of what we saw in the Thiago Santos fight. I think that Alex can basically emulate Thiago Santos except much better. So I do have to lean him for sure. Does Gable have potential to actually do well in UFC? I mean, he's a heavyweight who is mildly athletic, so yes. Paddy versus Holloway. Should be Holloway pretty easily. Paddy's not going to be able to take him down or control him. I feel like you're underrating Espinal. He's so much faster than every heavyweight, which just naturally makes him more dangerous in the pocket a lot of the time, and his grappling is very good. His grappling is the wild card. If his grappling is far better than we know, you could be right there. But in terms of his boxing in the pocket, I mean, speed is good, but speed doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to be spectacular. Because, like, you know who else is very fast is Ode Osborne, but he still gets chinned for a reason. Like, speed doesn't necessarily save you if someone has superior technique. You'd favor DDP versus Alex light heavyweight. The weight advantage and power feels very problematic, but I think DDP is overall better MMA fighter and can outmatch him. Yeah, I mean, the power, there is a discrepancy, but I would favor DDP at light heavyweight. Thanks, no problem. Are there any good bets on this card aside from Petrino, Álvarez odds, and Newt? I don't know how to feel about round one finish. We'll talk about it in the Discord. I'm going to look for some value there. It's a tough card. What do you think of a potential matchup of Paddy versus Holloway? I always find myself picking against Paddy in his fights, but I can't see how he would win this one. Yeah, I would pick Holloway in that fight for sure. John Silva or Merab? Right now, I would say Merab. John Silva has a lot of potential, but he has to show that he's going to reach that potential, in my opinion. Is it a hot take that I think Max would school Armin? That's very possible. Again, Max having such good anti-wrestling is certainly good for him in a matchup like that. Ilya might punch Justin so hard he'll develop an elite ground game. Fair. I don't understand why you underestimate Aspinall so much. He's the greatest heavyweight of all time. He's so dangerous that there just isn't a possibility of surviving 2 rounds. Okay, but what makes you believe that? I've heard this from a lot of people. A lot of people disagree with me about Aspinall, so you're definitely not having a hot take or anything. Like, don't think you're crazy by disagreeing with me there. I could be insane. But I don't see what everyone sees in Aspinall, because he's very fast and powerful, I agree. I think his technique is utter garbage. Because he comes into the pocket so recklessly and so predictably. He's always looking for the same exact combo every single time. And yes, heavyweight is weak. It will work against a lot of people. But if we get a technical boxer with power against him, it's going to be a problem, in my opinion. Do you think you overrated John Silva? No, I still think he is. I think he is as good as I think he was, if that made any sense. I think he just got overly emotional and didn't show what he's capable of. But we'll have to see in his next fight. Looking for 3 to 4x on this card and probably going to buy your algorithm/bets. Hope to see you there then. The Discord is great. Everyone there is super good about putting this stuff together. So we'll do our best for this card. Hopefully it works out. Your favorite MMA coach? Good question. Maybe Nicholas Ott. His results have been relatively spectacular when we look at how he transformed like Imavov and BSD's games. Did you do an analysis of the Lacerda versus Simon Oliveira fight? I did not. Wow, how did I miss that? It's not on their page. Okay, I'm not crazy. It isn't on the event page. I don't know why. Oh, I'll show you why. Look at this. So the format of the early ones is completely messed up, so I skipped 2 fights. I don't think anyone really cares about this too, but I'll do them quickly. So Juan Lacerda is a heavy kicker who likes to grapple. He'll throw a lot of heavy calf kicks, body kicks, etc. He doesn't really box much though. He'll just throw jabs, and then if it gets into the pocket, he'll spam hooks, but doesn't really have any setups or anything. On the ground, he's super aggressive, looking for submissions at ground and pound. He does love the guillotine. Same for Simon Oliveira, but we'll get to that. But the problem with Juan Lacerda is that he just doesn't do much sometimes. Like when he was fighting Cody Stamen, he didn't shoot a takedown really until round 3. Or I forget if he technically shot a takedown, but just didn't really go for it, what the deal was. We didn't really pursue the ground game, let's say, until round 3. And then he was able to win round 3 off doing it. So he's not reliable in terms of how he's going to perform and the volume he's going to put out. Simon Oliveira is dynamic on the feet. He's throwing a lot of spinning stuff, especially the spinning back fist, not as many kicks in general. He also loves the guillotine pull. He will wrestle a lot more reliably than Lacerda. His defense is a bit worse on the feet, though. He is very hittable, especially because of the dynamic techniques he does without any setup or really like fundamental defense. He doesn't tuck his chin. He doesn't really maintain the high guard reliability and all of that. I'm actually leaning Simon Oliveira in this fight because at least he is predictable in the sense that we know that he's going to put out volume. We know he's going to chase the takedowns and so on. We don't know if Lacerda is going to decide to not do anything until round 3. So it's a very low-level fight. Who knows what happens? But I have to pick the guy who at least know is going to actually fight. So I'm going to pick Oliveira by decision. Polastri versus Carolina. Carolina is just too old. Julia's nickname is Psycho. It fits her style very well. She just fights with her hands down and just walks forwards and throws bombs. I think this is going to work very well against an older Carolina here. Polastri should win a dominant decision, if not a finish. I'm going to say 30-27 decision. I don't think Merab would find success at featherweight. Like, I think Lopez chins him, Volk schools him. They'd all be bigger and stronger. I think that Merab would have a relatively big speed advantage, which could, and especially against Lopez, I think it would work easily. Especially because Lopez doesn't really have anything if you get him square on his back. He'll kind of just hang out there. So I do think Merab would definitely beat Lopez. Volk is a tough fight, though. What should be the game plan against Topuria? I mean, as I was saying earlier, you just have to counter the right hand. You have to know when he's throwing the right hand and take advantage of the lapse in his defense there. Do you think Diego versus Volk goes differently in a rematch after Diego's win over John? I'd still probably pick Diego. His footwork is just abysmal, though. And even that did not look better against John. But I still think that if we're giving him another 25 minutes to find a big shot against Volk, there's a high chance he finds it. By the way, are you live streaming this card? We'll see. Probably not, though, in all honesty. How is Joel Alvarez going to do at welterweight? Is Luque's funeral in 2 days, or does he have a chance? Luque has a chance because Joel's defense is questionable. He kind of uses a lot of tall man defense and then sometimes relies on his chin as well. But I do definitely have to favor Joel here. People forget everyone is unbeatable until they aren't. Yeah, exactly. Who would have won between BSD and Joel? You know, after seeing BSD's fight against Rufi, he definitely has a good game plan against a talented striker. So I may lean towards BSD, especially because Álvarez wouldn't have stuffed any takedowns. All time in terms of how he's finishing, guys. Oh, you're saying for Aspinall? Yes, but what is the quality of most of the guys that he's finishing? Like, Blades is a good win, Pavlovich is a good win. The rest have been like, Can Ilya perform get-ups on Armin? I'm sure Armin will take him down, but is there a chance this goes exactly like DDP Chimay? There's a chance, but Ilya has much more like fundamental wrestling and grappling than DDP does. In the sense that he has the Greco-Roman background. I don't think he's going to be nearly as easy to take down. I think even if he does get taken down, he does have the ability to transition relatively well in the BJJ. We saw it against Oliveira. Even though Oliveira did escape and threaten the leg lock, like, Ilya's ability to pass guard there was a very good indication for how Ilya would do on the ground against someone like Armin or Islam, in my opinion. So we don't really know because there's no examples of it, but I definitely lean towards Ilya being okay there. Who wins in Hamza versus Alex? So I answered that before. I think it really just depends on the first takedown. If Hamza can get it, then he wins. If Alex stuffs it, then he wins. Joel versus Carlos potential fight prediction. I need to see how Joel does at welterweight. After this fight, I'll be able to give a prediction for that, but we need to see. Is RDR winning by submission or decision next week? I'm probably picking Ellen, but knowing Ellen, he'll find a way to lose. Joel has such bad wrestling that I'm never going to pick him. Yes, but is Luque really going to be the one to exploit that? Like, I don't think so. Plus an Álvarez finish, plus Mosquito money line, plus Parashi money line. I mean, it should win. I'm picking all three of those. I'd really like to be interested to see Joel versus Bilal and Gary for different reasons. Gary is more mobile and has better footwork, in my opinion, while Bilal can consistently get on shots and could wear on him. I think Bilal would get finished just because Álvarez is so terrifying in exchanges where Bilal is just open. So I think that Álvarez is the type of power puncher who will crack Bilal's chin badly. I think the Gary fight is harder though, because it could end up kind of like the Demir fight, where Gary is just floating around on the outside and Joel doesn't get his chance to tee off. John or Volk. I need to see John bounce back. So I can't say for sure he would be Volk right now, but I do lean towards him being able to. Khabib versus Ilya and Merab versus Pantoja. I'd lean towards Merab beating Pantoja, but I do think it would be very close, and Pantoja definitely has a chance. Khabib versus Ilya, it really depends on the first takedown, which is, again, hard to say because we haven't seen an apt comparison, but I'd lean Ilya just barely. What is the key to having good takedown defense? It's fundamentals. So being able to react to the down block quickly by anticipating the takedown, knowing when they're going to shoot. Of course, having a solid sprawl, knowing what to do if they get past your first takedown defense. So, like, Whitaker making the mistake against, what's his name? Against Chimaev, where Whitaker tries to go for an underhook instead of sprawling or going for a very quick down block. Like, those are things you can't do and have decent fundamental takedown defense, in my opinion. You just need to know what exactly you need to do in each position. Merab versus Junior Taffa prediction. Merab by TKO. I don't trust Ellen's cardio. I mean, he has gone 5 rounds several times. I think his cardio will be okay. It's just his decision making that's questionable. What did you think about Bantamweight RDR Polish guy that fought Mix? I wasn't overly impressed. He gassed out in like 6 minutes. How far do you think Unk can go if he beats Allen? I still think that strikers who have like a semblance of takedown defense will give him problems. I think Whitaker honestly should have beaten him, and it was a close fight where Whitaker made some very interesting decisions, to say the least. See, I think DDP would probably chin him, but RDR keeps managing to win fights where I think he's going to lose, so who knows? Luque had decent wrestling against RDR. I assume you mean RDA, but yeah. I could see him taking advantage of Joel's lack of grappling. Main issue is on short notice. He was training for Ponzinibbio. I could see him get Joel down. I'm not saying he can't, but I think that Joel would have such an advantage even off of his back that it would be a problem for Luque. You switched up on John earlier. You were like, John beats everyone. I still think John beats everyone. I just cannot be confident until I see him rein his emotions now. But I still do believe skill set wise and potential wise he does. Volk's a pretty easy one for Silva. Yeah, as long as he doesn't like fight stupid like he did last time. Basically, I just want to see him bounce back in one fight where he's very calm, and then I'll be confident in picking him against everyone again. He's my favorite featherweight. Valid. And ironically, Jhonata might actually lose to Marab. Yeah, 100%. Jhonata has 0% chance against Marab, in my opinion. Are you happy that Alex won? What is next for him? Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that he proved my initial read on that fight correct. What is next for him? I'd like to see him fight Aspinall. I'm definitely concerned for RDR in the early rounds against Ellen. I could see RDR get a finish. Curtis could have... I assume you mean could have finished Ellen in the rematch. It's very possible. It's a weird fight. I don't know the validity of Ruben King, but according to him, Toporia's wife said Topuria was texting other women, that's why they broke up. I don't think he has validity, so. Thoughts on Justin Tafa apparently retiring? How will the heavyweight division possibly continue without him? I don't know, such a massive loss there. Who's the worst matchup for Ilya? Is it still John? Yeah, I still think that John is the only person I could consider picking against Topuria, even though I probably wouldn't right now. But yeah, John just needs to prove that he's going to rein things in a little bit. I hate RDR. I don't like this bum from 1FC beating UFC guys. Fair. No offense, but I hope the next live stream goes a lot smoother. Almost had me thinking Pipe forgot you. Oh, trust me, I hope so as well. I don't know what the hell happened today. Aljo is the only one that beats Silva. In my opinion, I'd beat him to beat everyone else. Aljo, that's an interesting one. I guess I could see what you mean. I don't know. I don't think Aljo would finish him, though. And I think it's a problem because Aljo does definitely fatigue and tends to get hurt later in the fights. So I could see Aljo winning like rounds 1, 2, and then getting finished in like 4. John wouldn't be able to handle the grappling, I fear. It's possible. But I think that especially given the last fight, he will adapt to. Break down the outside foot battle for Sergey Spivak and Shamil the Real Milgaziev. Yeah. You think Vittori gets cut if he loses next fight? Yeah, I mean, he'll be on like a 5-6 loss streak or something, so yeah, probably. I feel like RDR should have gotten Project by now. It kind of makes me feel like he might make his way to a title, kind of like how DDP did. I mean, DDP, even though he's unorthodox, is a lot more technically sound in my opinion, but I get what you mean. How confident are you in Petrino? I mean, it's hard to be confident in a guy who got guillotined by Anthony Smith, but he should definitely win the fight. Who would you back if Jan fought Lopez, Evloev, and Volk? That's a good question. I'd have to take Evloev and Volk. Lopez, I'd probably lean Jan, but I'm not positive. Let us all pray for the well-being of Pandosha. Fair. Who would you pick now in a theoretical Ankalaev Pereira matchup? I would say Pereira probably does the same thing again. DDP should train with Craig Jones in order to beat Khamzat. Yeah, I mean, that would be smart. What are you most excited about that you're working on right now? Also enjoyed the post-fight analysis, wouldn't mind having more of those. Yeah, so I'm considering either going live on like right after events or maybe a day or two after to do the post-fight analysis, and that helps get another stream in, and then we could do something else for the rest of the stream. So I might make that a normal thing if you guys enjoy it. Of what I'm working on right now, so I'm working on a YouTube video right now, so I'm going to be glad to be back to putting those out at least. In terms of the app to help fighters train, it's in a bit of a weird spot. Because as I was talking about last time, I'm trying to hire some people to help me with that, and it's going to be incredibly expensive apparently, but it is what it is. I want to make sure the quality is good before I release it. I'm a bit of a perfectionist in that sense. Off topic, but Smith versus Diniz, it was the lowest level ranked, top ranked MMA fight I've seen in my life. Yeah, I agree with that. Petr Yan versus or Josh Van. I'd pick Josh Van. Strickland says he wants Fluffy. Like I said before, I think it's a split decision either way, but I'm leaning towards Strickland winning because if Fluffy can't control Sean on the ground, then it won't matter. Yeah, I do think I would pick Sean in that fight. His Strickland's ground game is very underrated. Ilya versus JDM. I'd take Ilya. Mark will make a breakdown of how to not get beaten up by one's father. Chelsea Chandler. Going live right after would be cool. I don't watch too many parties. I don't watch too many watch parties, but afterwards is cool to me personally. Fair. Do you think Strickland's takedown defense and getting up will be enough to beat Pantoja? I would like to see more open weight fights. I genuinely want to know how that goes. Because Pantoja is a heavy grappler, though, and Strickland has legitimate grappling, he's probably fine there. Don't you think Oliveira struggles against Gamrot level of wrestling? I think that Oliveira will get taken down. I just don't know if it matters, because Gamrot's not going to be able to mount any offense without ending up in a sub. When is the next long-form video coming out? Probably within the next few days. I have the voicing done, so I just have to get the images and put it all together. Are they doing a sink or swim thing for Alejandre Topuria? Bexot seems to be a big step up in my opinion. Yeah, it seems like it. I think they're just going to start really hyping up whoever wins that. I meant Khamzat. Oh, okay, not Pantoja. That makes more sense. Strickland has a better chance against Khamzat than I think people are assuming, but it would probably be difficult to pick him outright unless we see him like out-grapple Fluffy like badly or something. Yuri Ankalaev, who would your pick be? It would be a tough call because I don't know what game plan Yuri will come in with. If he pressures Ankalaev, he can win. If he doesn't, he's not going to win. For Aswell, who you're leaning, I think Tom is too heavy. I'd take Pereira. I don't think Aswell is technical enough. Thoughts on the MMA guru Lucas Tracy and bedtime commentary team up? Would you hop on like a Dean Thomas if given the opportunity? I mean, yeah, if given the opportunity, any MMA creator of my size would, because it's good exposure. In terms of thoughts on the team up, I mean, I don't know. I don't really watch Lucas Tracy or Bedtime ever, and I've like watched some of Guru stuff, but nothing crazy. So maybe I don't know. I guess it depends on their dynamic together. We'll see what happens. Since you're southpaw, what's a good way to evade orthodox fighter right straight? I keep getting hit with it in sparring. Well, there's the whole traditional foot battle, right? If your foot is on the outside, you're going to have a better lined up straight. Otherwise, you have to think about when they're throwing it, so if there's a pattern to it, and of course, if you can slip it preemptively or be defending it preemptively. Like, how are they throwing it? If you want to pull something annoying, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing in sparring if you're going heavy, but if you guys are flow sparring and no one's going to hurt yourself, you could do this. You could do Poirier's type of defense, where you lift your elbow to make it very hard for them to throw straight. BJ Penn versus Lyoto Machida is probably the highest level open weight fight ever. Valid. Gamrot's BJJ in control is way worse than Armin's or Islam's. Charles will be fine. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Figgy theoretically should beat Merab, but as long as Merab can prepare for right-hand counters and put a pace on Figgy, he should win. I would say if we're talking about like prime Figgy, I would pick him over Merab, and I would actually do it very, very confidently. But Figgy, after moving up to bantamweight and after the Moreno fights, is a completely different fighter, in my opinion. And JDM long-form video would feed the nation. Definitely want to get to that, yeah. Plus Sakuraba actually beat some actually decent light heavies and heavyweights. Fair, yes. Shay is doing Dean Thomas. Okay, makes sense. Okay, so that's what you guys meant about that. Interesting. Yeah, fair. I mean, if I got that opportunity somehow, I'd 100% go for it. I don't think I am big enough to get that yet, though, realistically speaking. Am I crazy for thinking Alex versus Tom is a 50-50 match? Alex has shown a lot of improvement in takedown defense, and Tom isn't really as technical on the feet and leaves his chin high up in the air as well. I mean, I think that Alex has the edge, so you're not crazy for 50-50 by any means. Wouldn't you favor Yuri to beat Ulberg and Ankalaev just because we know regardless early or late he will pressure both of them and it seems like he'll have the same result regardless? I think that Ulberg is actually more of a threat to Yuri than Ankalaev because I think Ulberg may have the power to put out Yuri if he lands clean enough, and that is my concern for Yuri in that fight. Yuri's going to have to be a lot more careful in that fight than he will against Ankalaev. Granted, I definitely think he can beat both, but I need to not see the rounds 1 and 2 version of Roundtree fight. Last one's Pereira Ulberg and Pereira Hamzat picks. I take Pereira over Ulberg. I think Pereira versus Hamzat's 50-50. I call Poirier's defense diamond guard valid. Prime Figgy or Merab? Figgy. Who has the best body shot, head shot combos in MMA? Good question. I'd have to think about that one. It's a good question, though. Given how Mix looked against the debutant, does it mean that Kyoji is cooked? Probably. Yeah. Horiguchi not beating Mix and then Mix looking this bad is not a good look. Opinions on Moreno's form last couple of fights. Fair to say he's degraded too. Yeah, Moreno has degraded a lot, which is unfortunate. Especially in his prime, he was so fun. But yeah, he's not the fighter he was, in my opinion. So Moreno and Figgy have each other CT. I assume you mean gave each other CT in those 4 fights and are now different. I'm not sure about CTE, but they definitely took a massive toll on each other's bodies. Like, their explosiveness is not the same, their durability is not the same, and so many other things. What has changed the most about Figgy, in your opinion? I think he's still dangerous, but his activity has dropped significantly. He seems a lot more worried to take damage, so he doesn't get into firefights nearly as much anymore. His activity has definitely dropped, yeah. And he's a lot less like the pure willpower he had when he was at his 125 peak is just not there, which makes sense. I mean, he's older, he had a lot of wars, it just happens. Do you think Dana would ever let Jones back to an Alex fight? I think it depends on who he thinks is going to win. And how close Alex is to retirement. Because if it's both of their retirement fights, then it makes sense for the UFC to do. Otherwise, if he thinks Jones is going to win and then just retire, while Alex might stick around, then it wouldn't make sense for them to do. Those wars between them change them. Yeah, agreed. Maybe Ilya or JDM or Van. Yeah, I was thinking Van or JDM. I don't think Ilya, because even though he has good body strikes, he doesn't use that and then go to the head in the same combo usually. Moreno versus Figueiredo is the greatest rivalry of all time. Definitely the most skilled in my opinion, yeah. Remember when Yuri and Hamzat were beefing? Who would you pick at light heavyweight? I'd pick Yuri. I think he has somewhat perfect style to beat Hamzat. I'd lean Yuri also, yeah. I don't think Hamzat would be able to do much damage to him on the ground, definitely not on the feet. And Yuri would just keep putting more and more pressure and probably eventually find like a flying knee or something crazy. All right, we'll probably wrap things up here. I appreciate you guys coming and staying through the whole early stream BS. Hopefully that doesn't happen next time. I'll try to figure out what happens there. If you guys are betting, do consider looking at my betting tools and such. The link for that is in the description here, or it should be at least after I fixed it. Last week we did hit a plus 25,000 bet, which was crazy. I honestly don't think that's going to happen this week, but I will keep working to hopefully hit those again. So thank you guys for coming. Appreciate you all.